The natives, and you've seen the happy, carefree lives they lead. Now you can compare all this with what you're going to find in Melanesia, for we're just about to cross the 180th meridian, and we'll be among the blacks. In Melanesia, we find the cannibals and the headhunters. Our first stop will be at the Fiji Islands, a British Crown colony. 75 years ago, to speak of the Fiji Islands brought up visions of cannibalism. But today, according to the British government and the missionaries, cannibalism has ceased. The natives are trained to police the islands of the group wherever there are whites. It may be possible that the Fiji Islander, living so close to the dividing line between Polynesia and Melanesia, has had the Melanesian blood softened by the Polynesian strain and proves more susceptible to the influences of civilization. The children are very intelligent looking, considering the fact that their grandparents were cannibals, but they had the queerest types of haircut. Each one had his or her idea of beauty in a haircut. This girl washed her hair that morning and couldn't do a thing with it. And this fellow cuts his hair with a hammer and a chisel. They just reverse our method of building a house. They build the framework of the roof and lift it, and then build the under part of the hut. Then they thatch the whole thing with palm leaves, grass, and reeds. And it may surprise you to know that a hut built in this way is waterproof. The rainfall in the Fijis is very heavy. They have a great many bananas in this group. Practically all the bananas used in Australia and New Zealand are shipped from the Fiji Islands. They break each banana from the bunch and pack it separately. The bananas are brought down the rivers on great bamboo rafts. After the raft is unloaded, it's burned, for it's a great deal easier to go back up the river and build another raft than it would be to pull this one back up the swift current. Their fish lines and nets are made of coconut fiber. That's a very valuable article in the South Seas. This old fellow is making a line of coconut fiber that he will later weave into a fish net. Tortoiseshell hook tied with coconut fiber to a pearl oyster shell attractor makes a very good fish lure for the large saltwater game fish. A Fiji Island sailing canoe would give you nervous prostration. It's a long, narrow canoe held upright by an outrigger. The sail is made of grass cloth and the lines and halyards are made of coconut fiber. When the wind blows very hard, it's necessary for the passengers to ride out on the outrigger to prevent the canoe turning over. But it's a speedy craft and safe if you know how to distribute your weight in a blow. The most interesting part of it, though, is their method of maneuvering. They go as far as they want in any direction, and when they want to retrace their course, they don't come up into the wind with a lot of fuss and bother like a white man. They merely change the position of the sail. And then the bow becomes the stern, and the stern becomes the bow. And merrily they sail along on the way home. The clever white man hasn't thought of that. I think we secured the only moving picture ever made of a tidal wave. You'll notice the water rushes in and covers those reefs to a depth of 11 or 12 feet in a very few minutes. On many of the low islands, a great deal of damage was done, and some of the natives lost their lives. Some of the South Sea islands are only 3 or 4 feet above high water mark. Port sliding down this natural chute on a hot day. But it was so hard on the elbows, we couldn't sit down for about a week. You think a Melanesian would make a woman do any part of the hard work? No, sir. He makes her do it all. Women carry the wood, the man carries the axe. These women are making tapa cloth, the only cloth they had for garments prior to the arrival of the trader, and the edge of one piece pounded into the edge of the other. In this way, they can make a piece of any desired size. We saw some of the chief's trains that were 75 feet long. Then with vegetable dyes, they stencil on the designs using a palm leaf for a stencil. Fiji Islanders always give everyone of importance a feast. They thought we were important because we came with an expedition. We wanted to see what it was all about, so we didn't dispel their illusion. They dig a hole and fill it with rocks, which they get very hot. They put leaves on top of the rocks, the food on top of the leaves, more leaves over the food, and then cover everything with dirt. Pigs, chicken, fish, turtles, everything imaginable goes into that fire hole. And the food cooked that way is very delicious if you can just forget that they haven't cleaned anything. But before you eat, you must go through the kava ceremony and like it. Kava is a peppery root that is mixed up with water with a great deal of ceremony. Now, can you imagine drinking that stuff he's washing his hands in? He said he was straining it, but I noticed his hands were a great deal cleaner when he got through than when he started. The guest drinks this vile mixture from a coconut shell bowl. And brother, if you think a coconut shell doesn't hold a lot, you try it sometime. After the guest drinks, he spins the bowl and the others applaud. It looked like a lot of hooey to us. Here's Chief Rambisi in his long tapa-cloth train. The chief is followed by his warriors dressed in leaves, bark, tapa-cloth, and grass. That's the national costume of the Fiji Island warrior. They have a very nice custom of giving presents. They gave us a great many presents, a great many sweet potatoes. They call them yams, and some of them reach a weight of 50 pounds. Then the women arrive, bringing more presents, more sweet potatoes. We had enough sweet potatoes aboard the yacht when we left the Fiji Islands to stock all the markets in the state. In the sitting Siva dance of the women of the Fijis, as in the sitting Siva in Samoa, those movements tell a story. The women wear shirtwaists made of grass, leaves, and flowers. Those are made fresh every day. I think that's a very nice custom. Captain Salisbury remarked during the progress of this dance that he should like very much to have one of those tapa-cloth skirts. At the conclusion of the dance, all the women filed past him, and each woman took off her skirt and presented it to him. Every woman had another skirt underneath. The women are good dancers, but remember, they do all the work. They have less time to dance than have the men. The men are all warriors. They haven't had a war for 75 years. Nevertheless, they're warriors, and they won't work. All they do is dance. And are they good? They've got to be good. They go through this dance of the war clubs, requiring hours, hundreds of intricate movements, absolutely without music, not even the beating of a tom-tom. We watched them for hours and didn't see one mistake or hesitation on the part of a dancer. I doubt very much if anywhere in the world is a ballet as perfect in synchronized movement as these warriors of the Fijis dancing the dance of the war clubs. They keep time very much as a musician keeps time on his instrument. They told us that they always dance this dance of the war clubs before starting on a raid. Perhaps for the same reason that the North American Indian danced his war dance before he went on the warpath. Now note their features. Remember, 75 years ago, the Fiji Islanders were cannibals. We leave the land of the Batiks and travel up the Malacca Strait in search of new adventure. We pass the Nicobar Islands on the left, and we approach the Andaman Islands in the Bay of Bengal, where we found the pygmies, the Jarawayan pygmies, perhaps the most primitive people on Earth. We were very fortunate in finding this collection of natives who had lost their fear of the white man.